The sun glitters across the turquoise waters of Punta Cana, and tourists from around the world sink their toes into the soft white sand. It's a picture-perfect paradise that draws millions of visitors each year to the Dominican Republic's easternmost beaches. But beneath this postcard-worthy surface lies a darker reality that few travelers recognize until it's too late. When Sudiksha Konanki arrived at the Aruba Republica Hotel with her 5 college friends in early March 2025, she was like any other 20-year-old on spring break, ready for a week of sun, fun, and escape from her studies at the University of Pittsburgh. The 5-star, all-inclusive adults-only resort promised exactly the getaway these students were looking for. Little did Sudiksha know that she was walking into a paradise with hidden dangers that had already claimed multiple lives. The night that changed everything began like many on spring break, with music, dancing, and new friendships. Security cameras captured Sudiksha and her friends dancing at the resort's disco until around 3 a.m. on March 6. As the night wore on, the group connected with Joshua Stephen Riibe, a 24-year-old tourist from Iowa. Together, they decided to continue their evening under the stars. Around 4 a.m., the security footage shows them all heading toward the beach, with Sudiksha and Riibe walking close together, arms around each other's backs. The soft crash of waves and the moonlight on the water must have seemed romantic rather than threatening. While most of the group eventually headed back to their rooms around 5:50 a.m., Sudiksha and Riibe remained on the beach. It would be the last time anyone saw her. The day unfolded with increasing panic as hours passed without Sudiksha returning. By 4 p.m., her worried friends reported her missing to resort staff, triggering what would become a massive search operation involving more than 300 personnel from both Dominican and American agencies. While search teams combed the area, investigators began piecing together what happened during those early morning hours on the beach. What they discovered painted a troubling picture of dangerous conditions and inconsistent stories. Naval Commander Agustin Murillo Rodriguez reported the sea had been particularly rough that day, with unusually high waves pounding the shoreline. A hotel guest named Lonnie Sweeney remembered those same conditions vividly. "I remember the waves being a lot bigger than they normally were," Sweeney told investigators. "The waves were probably reaching like 6 feet. There are no lights or lanterns or anything on the beach to kind of illuminate it to help someone if they are on the beach. Me and my friends were on the beach and I remember telling them that I was not going to go into the ocean because I know I could swim but not well enough to feel safe." Red flags had been flying on the beach, literal warnings of the danger lurking in those beautiful azure waters. But had Sudiksha and Riibe noticed them in the darkness? Had they understood what they meant? Riibe's account of that morning changed multiple times, raising questions among investigators. In one version, he claimed they had gone for a swim but were caught in a large wave. He managed to swim back but became sick after swallowing seawater. In another telling, he said he fell asleep on the beach and woke up to find Sudiksha gone. A third story had him feeling ill and leaving her alone in knee-deep water. Security footage showed Riibe walking alone on the resort grounds afterward, shirtless, barefoot, and without Sudiksha. While authorities named him a person of interest as possibly the last person to see her, they emphasized he wasn't considered a suspect in what they still classified as a missing person case. As Sudiksha's devastated parents, Subrayudadu and Sridevi Konanki, urged investigators to consider kidnapping or human trafficking, Dominican authorities leaned toward a grimmer but simpler explanation, that Sudiksha had likely drowned in those treacherous waters, joining a growing list of tourists claimed by Punta Cana's deceptively dangerous coastline. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will bring you more videos featuring the most shocking true crime stories. What makes Sudiksha's disappearance even more tragic is that it wasn't an isolated incident. Just weeks earlier, on January 17, the same beach had witnessed another horror unfold when 6 tourists decided to swim at Playa Arena Gorda near the Aruba Republica Hotel. Despite the clear warning of red flags indicating dangerous conditions, they entered the water, a decision that would prove fatal for 4 of them. The powerful currents that day showed no mercy. Emergency services responded quickly, but they couldn't prevent tragedy. The bodies of 4 victims were recovered the next day, 47-year-old Marcin Teodor Czasinski and 52-year-old Sylwia Alexandra from Poland, 67-year-old Portuguese tourist Nelson Nunes Ribeiro, and 54-year-old Jakub Tomasz Pedziak. Two others struggled against the current but ultimately survived, though they needed medical care afterward. Behind these names were real people with families and futures. Nelson Ribeiro had been a primary school teacher who had recently retired from a career of shaping young minds in Oliveira do Hospital, Portugal. He left behind 2 children and had just become a grandfather to a newborn, a new chapter of his life cruelly cut short during what should have been a relaxing vacation. After the January drownings, RIU hotels and resorts issued statements expressing sympathy for the families and emphasizing that warning systems had been in place. The red flag placed on the beach, as a warning, indicated that the sea had an intense current and very high waves, the hotel explained, suggesting that the tourists had ignored these warnings. But some local property owners at the Cana Bay Resort raised concerns about inadequate safety measures, particularly the absence of lifeguards on these beaches, despite the high fees they paid for access to the complex. In the wake of these tragedies, the Emergency Operations Center imposed restrictions along the coastal perimeter, following recommendations from the Dominican Institute of Meteorology. What makes these waters so dangerous? The beaches of Punta Cana might look serene, but they hide powerful rip currents that can rapidly pull swimmers away from shore with incredible force. According to the Dominican Republic Coast Guard, Punta Cana's coastal waters feature some of the strongest underwater currents in the Caribbean basin, reaching dangerous speeds of 4 to 5 knots, particularly during storm season from August through November. These powerful forces can overwhelm even experienced swimmers within moments. Even strong swimmers can find themselves helpless against these currents, especially when combined with high waves. For tourists unfamiliar with reading ocean conditions, the danger might not be apparent until they're already in trouble. The International Lifesaving Association recommends specific actions when caught in a rip current. Rather than fighting against the powerful flow, swim parallel to the shore until you escape the current zone, then make your way back to the beach. Unfortunately, many tourists panic and exhaust themselves by trying to swim directly against the current, often with tragic consequences. The beaches along Playa Arena Gorda, where both incidents occurred, are particularly notorious for these dangerous currents during certain weather patterns. The conditions can change quickly, transforming a seemingly calm sea into a deadly trap within minutes. What's particularly striking about both Sudiksha's disappearance and the January drownings is that they occurred during early morning hours, times when supervision might be minimal and when darkness could obscure warning flags. Studies by the Dominican Institute of Meteorology have identified these early morning hours, 4 to 7 a.m., and late evening, 7 to 9 p.m., as the most hazardous times for swimming, creating a perfect storm of danger, limited visibility, reduced supervision, and often stronger currents. During these hours, emergency response times are typically longer, and crucial minutes can be lost before help arrives. The pattern suggests that the risk might be heightened during these hours, when fewer eyes are watching and help might be further away. Despite warning systems being in place, the tragedies raise serious questions about whether visual warnings alone are sufficient. Red flags can be missed or misunderstood, especially by international tourists who might not be familiar with local beach warning systems. And without lifeguards to enforce these warnings or intervene in emergencies, the flags become mere suggestions rather than effective safety measures. As the search for Sudiksha continues and the families of Marcin, Sylvia, Nelson, and Jakub mourn their losses, these stories serve as sobering reminders that paradise comes with risks that shouldn't be underestimated. The pristine beaches of Punta Cana will continue to draw tourists with their beauty, but beneath that beauty lies a power that demands respect and caution. For those planning trips to Punta Cana or similar coastal destinations, these tragedies highlight the importance of understanding local warnings, respecting ocean conditions, and recognizing personal limitations when swimming in unfamiliar waters. They also raise important questions about the responsibility of resorts to ensure adequate safety measures protect their guests, questions that remain unanswered as Sudiksha's family continues their desperate search for answers about their daughter's fate. The beautiful waters of Punta Cana will continue to glitter in the sun, but for those who know these stories, that glitter now carries a warning: paradise has a dark side that tourists ignore at their peril. Imagine the scene: as tourists snap photos of spectacular sunsets, certain individuals move discreetly through the same beaches, restaurants, and nightlife venues, observing potential opportunities. They look for specific indicators of vulnerability: solo travelers, those appearing disoriented or unfamiliar with their surroundings, individuals seeking connection or authentic local experiences. Safety resources suggest travelers exercise caution in unfamiliar surroundings. While the majority of visitors experience no issues during their stays, travel advisories regularly remind tourists to maintain awareness of their surroundings and personal safety, regardless of destination. Welcome back to our continuing investigation into the perplexing disappearance of Sudiksha Konanki. In our previous episodes, we've explored two leading theories that might explain what happened to this bright young student on the shores of Punta Cana. Our first episode examined the possibility of an accidental swimming incident, how the deceptively beautiful waters of the Dominican Republic conceal challenging currents and underwater hazards that affect multiple visitors each year, often leaving minimal evidence. We meticulously analyzed the weather conditions, tide patterns, and known water safety concerns that might have been present that March morning. In our second installment, we turned our attention to the concerning testimony and behavior of Joshua Riibe, whose account of events raised questions among investigators. We explored the inconsistencies in his statements, the unusual timing of his movements, and the curious gaps in surveillance footage that have led some to question his potential knowledge of Sudiksha's disappearance. Today, we venture into perhaps the most troubling possibility of all, a theory that aligns with documented safety challenges throughout the region but remains unproven in Sudiksha's specific case. Could this promising young student from Pittsburgh have encountered safety issues that occasionally affect travelers in vacation destinations? As we explore this possibility, we'll examine not just abstract statistics but the real-world challenges in tourist destinations, the specific factors that might have placed Sudiksha in a vulnerable position, and how similar cases have unfolded in picture-perfect destinations that harbor unexpected challenges beneath their sunlit surfaces. The Dominican Republic presents visitors with a vision of paradise: stretches of golden sand meeting crystal blue waters, lush palm trees swaying in gentle breezes, and vibrant culture at every turn. Tourism promotional videos showcase smiling vacationers enjoying carefree days at all-inclusive resorts and adventurous excursions through tropical landscapes. Over 6 million tourists visited annually before the pandemic, making it the Caribbean's most popular destination. What these glossy promotions rarely show is the multifaceted reality that exists in parallel with this vacation fantasy. Behind the carefully maintained resort properties and beyond the closely monitored tourist zones lies a different side of many vacation destinations, one where certain safety concerns exist alongside the beauty. The contrast can be significant. In popular tourist areas, some individuals may identify visitors who appear unfamiliar with their surroundings. According to travel safety resources, tourists should remain aware of their surroundings in any destination, as vacation environments can sometimes create situations where visitors may be more vulnerable than in their home environments. The serene beach where Sudiksha Konanki was last seen presents a jarring contrast to the possibilities we must consider. Security footage captured her walking toward the shoreline that March morning, appearing relaxed and at ease in her vacation environment, showing no signs of potential concerns that might have awaited. To accurately assess whether general safety issues could be a factor in this case, we need to understand who Sudiksha was and the specific circumstances of her trip. Sudiksha Konanki was a 20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student. While she had Indian heritage, she was an American student, not an international student visiting from India as incorrectly suggested in some reports. Her academic record showed exceptional promise, with professors describing her as intelligent, diligent, and thoughtful. Importantly, Sudiksha was staying at a 5-star resort in Punta Cana with friends, not traveling alone on a budget. She had traveled to the Dominican Republic during a brief academic break, surrounded by the relative security of a reputable accommodation. Despite these protective factors, experts note that certain circumstances could still apply in any traveler-specific situation. On the morning of her disappearance, Sudiksha had temporarily separated from her travel companions when she went to the beach, creating a window where she was momentarily on her own, which safety experts identify as a time when travelers might face increased vulnerability. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who specializes in travel safety patterns in the Caribbean, explains, even visitors staying at luxury resorts can face unexpected situations during moments of separation from their group. This is why travel advisories often recommend maintaining consistent contact with companions, even during brief separations. Additionally, while Sudiksha wasn't facing financial pressures that might lead to risky cost-saving decisions, her age demographic and potential interest in authentic cultural experiences beyond the resort boundaries could still represent factors that might influence her decisions about interacting with unfamiliar situations or individuals. These considerations don't prove any specific scenario occurred in Sudiksha's case, but they illustrate how even travelers in seemingly secure situations can face certain risk factors during specific moments or circumstances. If safety issues were involved in Sudiksha's disappearance, dramatic scenarios with obvious signs of distress likely weren't involved. Modern safety concerns in vacation destinations often involve more subtle approaches. Picture this: a friendly local approaches a visitor on the beach, perhaps offering information about the best spots to watch the sunset or recommendations for authentic local cuisine beyond the resort. The conversation feels natural, even serendipitous, exactly the kind of cross-cultural exchange many travelers hope for. This initial contact establishes rapport and allows assessment of the person's situation, language skills, and whether they're alone. According to travel safety experts, concerning situations in tourist areas often begin with seemingly chance encounters. Travel advisories typically warn that these interactions can sometimes lead visitors into uncomfortable situations. The initial conversations typically feel genuine and positive, with no indication of potential concerns. The next phase typically involves movement away from public spaces. The new acquaintance might invite the person to visit a local establishment away from tourist zones, offer transportation to authentic experiences, or extend invitations to private gatherings. Safety reports indicate that some individuals even establish preliminary contact through social media or dating applications before visitors arrive in the country, creating a false sense of familiarity when meeting in person. What makes these situations particularly concerning is their gradual nature. There's rarely a clear moment where alarm bells would ring for the person involved. Instead, a series of seemingly normal decisions leads them progressively further from safety. By the time the situation reveals its true nature, individuals are typically far from public spaces, separated from their belongings, and potentially already transported away from the original location. A particularly troubling aspect documented in travel safety resources involves beverages that may affect awareness. Some reports mention individuals being offered refreshments that cause disorientation, memory gaps, and reduced awareness. This methodology could explain how someone like Sudiksha, who by all accounts was intelligent and cautious, could disappear from a public beach without signs of distress that would attract attention. The geography of island destinations creates challenging conditions for locating missing persons, particularly in cases involving rapid movement. To understand why finding someone who has faced challenging circumstances becomes so enormously difficult, we need to examine these unique geographical characteristics. From tourist enclaves like Punta Cana, where Sudiksha disappeared, well-maintained highways connect to major urban centers like Santo Domingo and Santiago within hours. These cities, with populations in the millions, offer countless locations where individuals could potentially be taken, creating needle-in-a-haystack search conditions that overwhelm even well-resourced investigations. But island geography presents additional complications. The Dominican Republic shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, creating a land border that, despite official checkpoints, has areas with varying levels of monitoring. According to border security experts, unofficial crossing points exist in certain sections. Even more challenging is the maritime dimension. Extensive coastlines feature numerous small harbors, private docks, and isolated coves from which boats can depart with minimal oversight. A person transported from Punta Cana could potentially be on a vessel headed to nearby islands within hours of initial departure, before search operations have even begun. The window for locating individuals in concerning cases is extraordinarily narrow, explains Carlos Mendez, a regional safety expert. Within 24 to 48 hours, people can be moved multiple times, crossing boundaries that exponentially complicate investigation and recovery efforts. Travel safety resources note that once a person is moved internationally, locating missing individuals becomes exponentially more difficult, as investigations must navigate multiple jurisdictions, languages, and legal systems with varying levels of cooperation and resource commitment. To understand why certain safety issues must be considered as a possible explanation in Sudiksha's case, we should examine the documented realities in the region. Travel advisories note that visitors should remain aware of their surroundings and exercise appropriate caution in tourist areas throughout the Caribbean. These resources specifically mention that travelers from various regions, including other parts of the Caribbean, Asia, and Latin America, have occasionally faced safety challenges in certain locations. This confirms that foreign nationals like Sudiksha, not just local citizens, should maintain awareness while traveling. A particularly important aspect to consider is that safety concerns can exist even in popular tourist areas. According to travel safety networks, visitors should maintain awareness in tourist locations throughout the region, including coastal beach towns. Punta Cana, where Sudiksha disappeared, is precisely such a location. These situations don't exist in isolation, they function within complex networks that include various individuals. Travel advisories sometimes note concerns about how effectively certain issues are addressed, which creates additional challenges for investigation and visitor safety. Many Caribbean nations have made efforts to address these issues, establishing specialized police units and improving visitor protection. However, safety assessments suggest that opportunities for improvement remain, creating an environment where travelers should maintain appropriate awareness. Understanding these realities doesn't mean any specific scenario definitely occurred in Sudiksha's case, but it establishes that several possibilities should be considered within the documented context of regional safety considerations. If safety issues were indeed connected to Sudiksha's case, understanding the investigative challenges helps explain why such cases often remain unresolved for extended periods, if they're solved at all. When Sudiksha was reported missing, authorities faced a complex investigative puzzle. The initial focus likely centered on the beach area where she was last seen, operating under the swimming incident theory that our first episode explored in detail. Search teams would have examined the shoreline and nearby waters, looking for any sign of a swimmer in distress. However, if other scenarios were involved, this focus on the immediate area would have been searching for evidence in exactly the wrong location. With each passing hour, the geographic scope of where Sudiksha might be located would expand exponentially, quickly exceeding the practical search capacity of even the best-resourced law enforcement agencies. The evidence challenges are equally daunting. Unlike other situations that leave physical evidence, the initial stages of concerning incidents often appear completely normal to witnesses. Someone willingly leaving a beach with a new acquaintance, accepting a ride, or entering a local establishment doesn't trigger the same alarm as visible distress would. An additional complication in Sudiksha's case would be the resort setting itself. Five-star resorts typically maintain controlled perimeters with security personnel and surveillance systems. However, these systems have limitations: cameras don't cover every angle, security staff can't monitor every guest, and beach areas often represent vulnerable boundaries between resort property and public spaces. The jurisdictional complexity creates additional friction. Cases involving foreign nationals require coordination between multiple agencies, each with different protocols, priorities, and resources. Language barriers further complicate identification and witness interviews, with crucial details potentially lost in translation. Perhaps most significantly, if organized activities were involved, they would likely operate with sophisticated awareness. Such operations might monitor official activities, adapt routes and methods when investigations increase in certain areas, and maintain layers of separation between different participants, making comprehensive investigation extremely challenging. Understanding potential risks in destinations isn't about spreading fear but empowering travelers through awareness. If safety concerns were involved in Sudiksha's case, what measures might provide protection for others? Simple awareness of how concerning situations typically begin, through friendly encounters that gradually move people away from public spaces, creates heightened vigilance towards certain types of interactions. Even for travelers staying in secure resort environments, understanding the risks associated with temporarily separating from one's group can inform safer decisions. Established safety protocols for travelers include maintaining regular communication with companions, establishing check-in times when temporarily separating, and sharing location information. These simple practices create accountability structures that make isolated individuals less vulnerable. Technology offers additional protection layers that weren't widely available even a decade ago. Location-sharing applications that allow friends or family to monitor movement patterns, emergency alert systems that function internationally, and regular check-ins with companions all create safety nets that may deter potential concerning situations for isolated travelers. Behavioral awareness is equally important. Safety specialists recommend maintaining healthy skepticism toward unusually friendly strangers, particularly those offering experiences, opportunities, or assistance that would involve leaving public areas. Legitimate tour guides and service providers have verifiable credentials and typically operate through established businesses that can be researched in advance. For students like Sudiksha traveling during academic breaks, university programs increasingly provide specific travel safety training that includes recognizing risks. These programs emphasize the importance of group travel, using only official transportation services, and researching destinations thoroughly before arrival. The vast majority of travelers to the Dominican Republic never encounter serious problems, notes Dr. Vasquez. However, understanding specific safety considerations helps travelers make choices that significantly reduce their vulnerability to the rare but serious situations that do exist. As detailed in our previous episodes, Sudiksha Konanki remains missing despite extensive search efforts spanning both the Dominican Republic and international resources. The investigation continues to pursue multiple threads simultaneously, including various possibilities alongside the swimming incident theory and the questions surrounding Joshua Riibe's account. International agencies continue coordinating with Dominican authorities, with the FBI providing technical assistance and other agencies maintaining pressure for thorough investigation. Sudiksha's family and friends have maintained a presence in the Dominican Republic, working tirelessly to keep attention focused on the search while navigating the emotional devastation of their ongoing ordeal. Community support has emerged both locally and globally. In the Dominican Republic, volunteer groups have organized additional search efforts, particularly focusing on areas beyond the initial beach location. Online, social media campaigns maintain visibility for Sudiksha's case, sharing her photo and story to keep public awareness high. Whether safety issues explain Sudiksha's disappearance remains unknown. What is certain, however, is that her case has raised crucial awareness about factors that might place travelers in vulnerable situations and the importance of maintaining safety awareness even in seemingly idyllic vacation settings. The possibility that Sudiksha Konanki encountered a safety incident represents more than just one theory in a mysterious disappearance. It illuminates broader patterns of vulnerability that affect travelers globally and highlights the contrast between tourism marketing and on-the-ground realities in various destinations. While we may never know with certainty what happened to Sudiksha on that March morning in Punta Cana, examining her case through the lens of traveler safety provides valuable insights that may protect future visitors. Her disappearance serves as a powerful reminder that paradise destinations require the same careful attention to personal safety as any other location. The beach where Sudiksha walked that morning continues to welcome new visitors daily. Tourists still spread their towels on the same sand, swim in the same waters, and enjoy the same breathtaking views, largely unaware of the mystery that unfolded there. This parallel reality, tourism continuing while questions remain unanswered, underscores the importance of awareness without alarmism. For the millions who will visit the Dominican Republic and similar destinations in the coming years, understanding specific regional considerations allows for informed decision-making that balances enjoyment with appropriate caution. Simple precautions: maintaining awareness even in luxury resort settings, avoiding temporary isolation, and exercising healthy skepticism toward overly friendly strangers, can significantly reduce vulnerability without diminishing the travel experience. For the bright young student who disappeared on what should have been a carefree vacation with friends, we continue to seek answers. Whether those answers will be found in the challenging currents explored in our first episode, the suspicious circumstances surrounding Joshua Riibe from our second investigation, or in the concerning situations we've examined today remains to be seen. What's certain is that Sudiksha's story deserves to be told, her case deserves resolution, and the lessons from her disappearance may help protect others who follow in her footsteps to the beaches that remain both breathtakingly beautiful and worthy of mindful awareness from every traveler. Sudiksha Konanki was a young, promising student at the University of Pittsburgh, who dreamed of a medical career. Her path was filled with ambition, a desire to develop and explore the world. Spring break in the Dominican Republic was meant to be one of the brightest memories of her life. Together with her friends, she arrived in Punta Cana on March 3. The Rio Republica Hotel, located on the Caribbean coast, was famous for its loud parties, free alcohol, and an atmosphere of carefree relaxation. It was here that Sudiksha met 22-year-old Joshua Riibe, a student at St. Cloud State University in Minnesota, who had also come to vacation. Riibe was known for his sociable nature and ease of communication. He was vacationing with a friend at the same hotel where Konanki and her friends were staying. Their meeting seemed random, like many encounters at such resorts. However, this meeting would become a key event that would later lead to tragedy. On the evening of March 5, the group of young people was spending time at the hotel bar. The girls from the University of Pittsburgh were laughing, drinking cocktails, and enjoying their vacation. Joshua was drinking with his friend, relaxing after a party. At some point, their paths crossed. According to Riibe's testimony, he and his friend approached the group of girls and started introducing themselves. Sudiksha, who had an open and sociable character, quickly found common ground with Joshua. He was tall, athletic, with a light sense of humor, which made him attractive in company. An easy conversation began between them, they laughed and exchanged jokes. Sudiksha looked relaxed and cheerful. Hotel cameras captured her standing next to Riibe, telling him something while he listened attentively. They danced together, drank, and seemed completely comfortable in each other's company. After several hours at the bar, as the hour approached 3 in the morning, someone in the group suggested changing the setting and going to the beach. The idea seemed appealing. The cozy bar with alcoholic haze had already become boring, and the fresh sea air seemed like a perfect addition to the night. At 4:15 a.m., hotel cameras recorded a group of 8 people, 6 women and 2 men, leaving the hotel grounds and heading to the beach. Sudiksha and Joshua walked side by side, holding hands. The recordings show them laughing, slightly swaying after drinking, and even taking a selfie against the backdrop of palm trees and sandy paths. On the shore, the group split up. 2 girls remained sitting on loungers, enjoying the night breeze. Others went closer to the water. The waves seemed calm at first glance, but they concealed a treacherous force. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will bring you more videos featuring the most shocking true crime stories. Friends spent about 40 minutes on the beach. At 4:55 a.m., they decided to return to the hotel. Surveillance cameras recorded 5 women and 1 man leaving the beach, heading back through the palm-lined path. But Sudiksha and Joshua were not among them. They remained alone. A dark beach, a restless ocean, and 2 young people who had just met. This was the last moment when Sudiksha was seen by her friends. What happened after that remains one of the greatest mysteries of this story. Darkness enveloped the Punta Cana coast. Resort lights were left behind, and only moonlight and twinkling stars weakly illuminated the night beach. The ocean swayed in the rhythm of waves that grew increasingly stronger. Joshua Riibe and Sudiksha Konanki were left alone. According to Riibe, they talked, laughed, and then went into the water. He claims he took off his shoes, removed his shirt, left his belongings on a lounger, and went waist-deep into the sea. Sudiksha followed him. The water was warm, but the waves were beating with incredible force. Suddenly, an unexpectedly strong wave swept over them both. The water flow knocked them off their feet, dragging them deeper. Riibe said he tried to hold on to Sudiksha, but the waves prevented them from getting out. He was choking on water, feeling his strength depleting. After several minutes of struggling with the ocean, he managed to approach the shore, holding her in front of him. They were already standing in knee-deep water. Sudiksha seemed to be trying to walk to the beach. Joshua asked if she was okay but heard no response. At this moment, he threw up from the excess of seawater he had swallowed. When he raised his head, she was no longer there. He claims he thought perhaps she had gone back to her friends, taken her belongings, and returned to the hotel. He was so exhausted that he simply lay down on the lounger and fell asleep. The next morning, when he was awakened by the sun and mosquito bites, Sudiksha was nowhere to be found. But no one yet realized that this night would become the beginning of a high-profile case that would attract the attention of the entire world. The morning of March 6 for the Rio Republica Hotel guests began like an ordinary day. The sun rose over the Caribbean Sea, inviting tourists to the beach. However, for Sudiksha Konanki's friends, this day became the beginning of a terrible nightmare. When she did not return to her room, her friends initially did not attach much significance to this. They assumed she might have stayed with someone from her new acquaintances or simply fallen asleep somewhere on the beach. But as time passed and no one could reach her phone, anxiety grew. Around 4 p.m. that day, friends reported Sudiksha's disappearance to hotel staff. The first search measures began. Hotel personnel checked surveillance cameras, which showed that Sudiksha had gone to the beach with her friends and Joshua Riibe but had not returned. Meanwhile, Joshua remained calm. He left the beach around 9 a.m., returned to his room, and continued his vacation until he learned that Sudiksha was being searched for. Later, he told investigators that he was shocked and did not understand where she could have gone. Authorities in the Dominican Republic launched a large-scale search operation. Helicopters combed the coastline from the air, boats patrolled the water, and rescue teams with dogs examined the beach. At the scene, only Sudiksha's belongings were found on the lounger, a white swimsuit and a light sarong. There were no signs of violence. But questions remained. If she had drowned, where was the body? How could it be that Joshua Riibe, who was nearby, did not notice anything suspicious? Why did he not raise the alarm immediately? The police began to look more closely at the last person who had seen Sudiksha alive. And although Riibe was not officially considered a suspect, his passport was confiscated, and the young man was kept under supervision at the hotel. Joshua Riibe was the last person who had seen Sudiksha Konanki alive. Therefore, when her disappearance became obvious, he found himself at the center of attention as a key witness and possibly the only person who could shed light on the events of that night. Riibe's version and its contradictions. By the time Sudiksha's friends began searching for her, Joshua Riibe was already asleep in his room. He did not inform hotel staff about her disappearance, did not contact the police, and did not attempt to find her on his own. This behavior raised suspicions. His first interrogation took place at the hotel, where the police tried to reconstruct the chronology of events. Riibe explained that he and Konanki had gone into the water, were swept by a strong wave, and he tried to keep her on the surface. He claimed that, exhausted from fighting the current, he managed to swim out, but when he raised his head after being sick from seawater, Sudiksha was no longer there. He suggested that she might have gone alone, taken her belongings, and returned to her room. He remained on the beach, fell asleep on a lounger, and returned to the hotel in the morning. This version immediately raised questions. Why didn't he try to find her after realizing she had disappeared? If they were truly fighting the waves together, why did no one hear cries for help? How could he assume she simply left without saying goodbye, leaving her belongings behind? These details made his testimony unconvincing. The police decided not to let him leave the country, confiscating his passport. Dominican authorities began pressuring him, trying to determine if there were inconsistencies in his story. He was interrogated for hours, and on one of the days, he spent more than 6 hours in the prosecutor's office, answering numerous questions. Joshua claimed he was cooperating with the investigation but simultaneously began complaining about the conditions of his detention. His parents stated that he was isolated, that he had been interrogated without an official interpreter and without a lawyer until March 12, which was a serious violation of his rights. This created an ambiguous situation. For some, he looked like a victim of excessive police pressure. For others, like someone hiding something and trying to avoid responsibility. 10 days after Sudiksha's disappearance, Riibe's lawyers filed a habeas corpus petition, claiming that the police and prosecutor's office had violated his rights by detaining him without filing official charges. The judge granted this petition, recognizing that holding Riibe under such supervision without official charges was improper. After the court decision, he was officially released, but his passport was not returned, and he remained blocked in the Dominican Republic. During the hearing, Riibe made a statement to the judge, "I really want to return home and see my family. I understand that I am here to help, but 10 days have passed." He repeated that he was hiding nothing, that he had done everything possible to save Sudiksha, and that his detention was unfair. However, Dominican authorities were not in a hurry to let him go. They insisted that the investigation was ongoing, and Riibe remained a key witness who could help shed light on the disappearance. Joshua Riibe's case was perceived differently. In the United States, many saw him as a victim of the system, a young American detained in a foreign country without any real evidence of guilt. His parents claimed that their son was an honest guy who found himself in a terrible situation but had done nothing wrong. However, in the eyes of many others, including the Konanki family, the situation looked different. They suspected he was hiding something. Why didn't he call the police immediately after Sudiksha disappeared? Why didn't he even try to find her when he woke up? Why did his version of events have minor inconsistencies? The investigation continued, but no new evidence emerged. The police found no material evidence that could indicate criminal activity by Riibe. After the court found his detention illegal, Joshua Riibe remained in the Dominican Republic, waiting for the return of his passport. His lawyers even approached the U.S. Embassy to obtain a new document, but this process was delayed. Official authorities stated that the investigation had not found evidence of Riibe's involvement in Sudiksha's disappearance. But they also did not exclude the possibility that new details might emerge later. The Konanki family continued to insist on expanding the investigation and considered involving private detectives. They did not believe in the simple drowning version, as Sudiksha's body was never found. Joshua Riibe returned to the United States. After almost 2 weeks of being under supervision in the Dominican Republic, he received a new passport from the U.S. consulate and returned home with his father. The Dominican Republic authorities concluded that Sudiksha Konanki had probably drowned due to strong currents and did not suspect Riibe of any wrongdoing. Konanki's parents also did not consider Joshua responsible for her death. Under pressure from the family and public, authorities were forced to involve additional resources. Drones, search dogs, and military divers were used, but the body was never found. This only fueled suspicions. If Sudiksha drowned, why wasn't she washed ashore, as often happens? Meanwhile, public opinion about Joshua Riibe was ambiguous. Some people considered him innocent, pointing to the lack of evidence and that his version did not contradict logic. Others suspected he was hiding something. His calm behavior after that night, the fact that he did not immediately raise an alarm, and small inconsistencies in his testimony raised doubts. The court's decision to release Riibe without charges further divided society. His parents publicly expressed condolences to the Konanki family but also emphasized that their son had been held in inappropriate conditions and interrogated without a lawyer and official interpreter. While Riibe waited for his passport to be returned, Konanki's parents approached Dominican authorities with an official request to declare their daughter dead. They explained this as a desire to begin the grieving process and obtain legal confirmation of her disappearance. However, the main questions remained open. What really happened that night? Why did no one hear cries for help? Were there other people on the beach who could have been involved in her disappearance? Despite all searches, the investigation could not provide a definitive answer. Sudiksha Konanki's case remained one of the mysteries that continues to provoke controversy and discussion. The Caribbean Sea continued to surge, and the sandy beach of Punta Cana, which had become the last known location of the young student, was once again filled with tourists. People continued to have fun, enjoy their vacation, unaware that this beach preserves a mystery whose answer may never be found. This story, despite all investigative efforts, remains unfinished. The fate of Sudiksha Konanki, a young student who dreamed of a great future, is lost among the endless waves of the Caribbean Sea. On one side, Dominican authorities lean towards the accident version. The absence of evidence of violent death or involvement of other persons, as well as the strong sea currents that night, all this supports the official version. But on the other hand, many questions remain unanswered. Why was her body never found, even after massive searches? How could Riibe, a former lifeguard, not clearly explain exactly what happened in the last minutes when he saw her? And most importantly, did everything really happen exactly as he described? After his release, Riibe remained in the Dominican Republic, waiting for his passport to be returned. His family and lawyers insisted that he had become a victim of investigative procedures that violated his rights. In the United States, many supported him, believing he was an accidental witness to the tragedy, not its perpetrator. Days passed, weeks went by. Sudiksha was not found. And the story of her mysterious disappearance remained a painful mystery that still moves people who seek to understand what happened that night on the Punta Cana beach. Human history is pierced with tragic cases of traceless disappearances, which sometimes remain unsolved for decades. Cases involving young people in the prime of their lives, full of hopes and plans for the future, are especially painful. Among such stories, the cases of two students whose fates are separated by almost 2 decades but connected by eerie parallels have gained particular resonance: Sudiksha Konanki and Natalee Holloway. March 2025 brought news that shocked not only the American public but also the international community. Sudiksha Konanki, a 20-year-old student of Indian origin at the University of Pittsburgh, disappeared during spring break vacation in the Dominican Republic. This story terribly resembled the events of May 2005, when 18-year-old Natalee Holloway went missing on the Caribbean island of Aruba. Both cases share not only a similar scenario of disappearance during a vacation in a tropical paradise but also many other details that make one wonder whether anything has changed in ensuring the safety of young tourists over these years. Sudiksha Konanki was a promising bioengineering student at the University of Pittsburgh. Born in India, she moved to the USA to pursue higher education and fulfill her American dream. She was described by professors as a diligent, focused, and gifted student with a bright future. For spring break 2025, Sudiksha decided to vacation with friends in the resort town of Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, a popular destination for student travel during spring break. It all began on March 3, 2025. Sudiksha and her friends arrived in Punta Cana, staying at a popular resort hotel. Several days passed carefree. The young people enjoyed the sun, ocean, and relaxation after a stressful semester. Nothing foreshadowed the approaching tragedy. On the night of March 5, Sudiksha and a group of other students, including 23-year-old Joshua Riibe from Minnesota, a student at St. Cloud State University, went to the Imagine Punta Cana nightclub. That night, music, dancing, and an atmosphere of carefree vacation lasted until dawn. According to witness testimonies and surveillance cameras, the last known hours of Sudiksha Konanki unfolded as follows. March 5, 11 p.m., Sudiksha and a group of students arrived at the Imagine Punta Cana nightclub. Early Thursday, March 6, Konanki was seen on surveillance footage drinking with 5 women and 2 men in the Rio Republica Hotel lobby in Punta Cana, a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation tells CNN. For 17 a.m. Thursday, March 6, Konanki was last seen on surveillance camera with 7 other people entering the beach at the Rio Republica Hotel, police said. Around 4:55 a.m. Thursday, March 6, surveillance cameras captured 5 women and 1 man leaving the beach, 2 sources close to the investigation told CNN. Konanki appears to have stayed behind with a man in his 20s, a man investigators believe was the last person to see her, according to the law enforcement source familiar with the investigation. 8:55 a.m. Thursday, March 6, surveillance video shows the man in his 20s leaving the beach area, 2 sources close to the investigation said. Around 4 p.m. Thursday, March 6, the 5 college friends who traveled with Konanki to the Dominican Republic reported her missing, the Riu hotel chain said in a Spanish-language statement. 5:43 p.m. Thursday, March 6, Konanki's father filed a missing person report with the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, after which the office engaged with the U.S. State Department and federal law enforcement to reach out to the Dominican Republic National Police. The version that Sudiksha went swimming in the ocean in the middle of the night immediately raised suspicions among the girl's parents and friends. According to them, Sudiksha was quite cautious and responsible, well aware of the dangers of night swimming, and would hardly have dared to take such a risky step. Besides, some of her friends claimed that she was not a strong swimmer and always showed certain caution around water. After Sudiksha's disappearance became known, the Dominican police launched a large-scale search operation. The Coast Guard, divers, drones, and volunteers were involved in the search. Beaches, surrounding areas, and coastal waters were thoroughly examined for several days, but no traces of the girl were found. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will bring you more videos featuring the most shocking true crime stories. Given the international nature of the case, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, joined the investigation. Sudiksha's parents, Shiva Chetna Konanki and Bhavani Konanki, immediately flew from India to the Dominican Republic, hoping to find their daughter. The Indian embassy also actively participated in coordinating efforts to find their citizen. The investigation immediately focused on questioning witnesses and analyzing surveillance camera footage. Investigators paid special attention to Joshua Riibe, who became the last person to see Sudiksha alive. On March 7, the Dominican police detained Joshua for questioning. According to official statements, he had the status of a person of interest to the investigation, but was not officially charged with committing a crime. Meanwhile, investigators also analyzed digital evidence, social media messages, email correspondence, and data from Sudiksha's mobile phone. Unfortunately, the girl's mobile phone, which could have provided valuable information, was never found. The last known location of her phone was the territory of the imagined Punta Cana nightclub. Later, information emerged from a private detective hired by the Konanki family that cast doubt on the drowning version. The detective noted that the sea was relatively calm that evening, and the currents were not strong enough to carry the body far from shore. If the girl had indeed drowned, her body would most likely have been washed ashore within a few days. However, no traces of Sudiksha have been found so far. Joshua Riibe, a 23-year-old student from St. Cloud State University in Minnesota, found himself at the center of the investigation as a key witness. During interrogations, he repeatedly stated his version of events. He and Sudiksha left the nightclub together, decided to go to the beach, where the girls spontaneously decided to swim in the ocean, despite the late hour. According to him, he turned away briefly, and when he looked back at the ocean, Sudiksha was no longer visible. However, investigators found certain inconsistencies in his testimony. First, details differed regarding how long he was with Sudiksha on the beach before she decided to enter the water. Second, he could not precisely explain why he did not seek help immediately, but did so only an hour and a half after the girl's disappearance. Investigators also discovered that Joshua and Sudiksha had met only a day before the tragic events, which raised additional questions about why the girl agreed to go to the beach with him in the middle of the night. Sudiksha's friends claimed that such behavior was uncharacteristic for her, especially with someone she barely knew. On March 17, Joshua Riibe was released by the Dominican police due to lack of evidence of his involvement in the girl's disappearance. Upon returning to the United States, he declined further comments to the press, citing advice from his lawyers. According to reports, his family received numerous threats after his name became known to the public in connection with the Konanki case. After almost 10 days of fruitless searches, Sudiksha's parents faced the most difficult decision of their lives. On March 19, 2025, Shiva Chetna and Bhavani Konanki held a press conference, during which they announced that they were asking to officially declare their daughter dead. With deep sadness and a heavy heart, we are forced to accept that our beloved daughter Sudiksha died as a result of a water accident, said the girl's father, barely holding back tears. We have exhausted all possibilities and taken all measures to search for her. It's time to accept reality and focus on preserving the memory of our beautiful daughter. Sudiksha's mother, Bhavani, could not speak during the press conference, repeatedly breaking into sobs. A scene that broke the hearts of millions of people watching the tragedy through the media. We want to bring her spirit home, explained Shiva Chetna Konanki. In our culture, it's important to conduct proper rituals for the soul's rest. We cannot keep her in a suspended state between worlds. The University of Pittsburgh announced the creation of the Sudiksha Konanki Scholarship for bioengineering students to perpetuate the memory of the talented student. Many students and faculty held a memorial ceremony on the university campus, lighting candles and sharing memories of the girl who left life so early. The tragic story of Sudiksha Konanki inevitably drew parallels with another high-profile case, the disappearance of Natalee Holloway, which occurred almost 20 years ago, in May 2005. This case became one of the most famous unsolved criminal stories in the U.S. and changed the approach to the safety of young Americans during foreign trips. Natalee Holloway was an 18-year-old high school graduate from Mountain Brook, Alabama. Like thousands of other American graduates, she went to celebrate her high school graduation on the Caribbean island of Aruba, which is part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Along with 124 classmates and 7 adult chaperones, Natalee arrived in Aruba on May 26, 2005. The girl was last seen alive on the night of May 30, when she was leaving the Carlos and Charlie's nightclub in Aruba's capital, Oranjestad. Video recordings and eyewitness testimonies showed that Natalee was leaving the club in the company of 3 local young men, 17-year-old Joran van der Sloot and brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpo, 21 and 18 years old respectively. When Natalee did not appear the next morning for the return flight to the United States, her classmates and chaperones raised the alarm. Aruba police immediately began an investigation, questioning the 3 young men with whom she was last seen. Joran van der Sloot initially claimed that he and the Kalpo brothers drove Natalee to her Holiday Inn hotel but did not go inside. However, the hotel's security guards and surveillance cameras did not record the girl's return that night. Subsequently, van der Sloot changed his testimony several times, generating increasing suspicion. Over the next 18 years, Joran van der Sloot became the central figure in the Natalee Holloway case. Aruba police detained him and the Kalpo brothers several times but were forced to release them each time due to lack of evidence. During this time, van der Sloot changed his story at least 3 times, telling different versions of what happened to Natalee on that fatal night. In 2010, 5 years after Natalee's disappearance, van der Sloot found himself at the center of a new scandal. He offered Natalee's mother, Beth Holloway, information about the location of her daughter's body in exchange for $250,000. Beth contacted the FBI, which organized an operation to arrest van der Sloot. However, he managed to escape to Peru with the money he received. In Peru, just 5 days after fleeing Aruba, van der Sloot murdered 21-year-old Peruvian student Stephanie Flores Ramirez in a hotel room in Lima. This time the evidence was irrefutable, and in January 2012, he was sentenced to 28 years in prison for Stephanie's murder. Only in October 2023, 18 years after Natalee Holloway's disappearance, van der Sloot finally confessed to her murder. He was temporarily extradited to the United States, where he pleaded guilty to extortion and fraud, and also detailed how he killed Natalee. According to his confession, he attacked Natalee on the beach when she rejected his romantic advances. Joran confessed that he hit her on the head with a stone and then threw her body into the ocean. Natalee fought to the last. Natalee's mother, Beth Holloway, recalled van der Sloot's words at the court hearing. Natalee Holloway's body was never found, despite numerous search operations and investigations that lasted for years. In January 2012, almost 7 years after her disappearance, an Alabama court officially declared Natalee Holloway dead, although her mother long resisted this decision, hoping for a miracle. Comparing the cases of Sudiksha Konanki and Natalee Holloway, it's impossible not to notice the eerie coincidences that make one think about the cyclical nature of tragedies. 1. Young women on vacation. Both victims were young students vacationing at Caribbean resorts. Natalee was 18, Sudiksha was 20. 2. Nightclubs. In both cases, the girls were last seen alive when they were leaving nightclubs in the company of people they had met relatively recently. 3. Disappearance versions. In both cases, the main suspects or witnesses initially claimed they didn't know what happened to the girls, suggesting they might have drowned. 4. Absence of bodies. Neither Natalee's nor Sudiksha's body was found, which complicated the investigation and created space for different versions. 5. International character. Both cases had an international character, requiring cooperation between law enforcement agencies of different countries. 6. Media coverage. Both cases received extensive coverage in international media, drawing the world community's attention to travel safety issues. 7. Death recognition without finding the body. In both cases, the families eventually decided to officially declare their daughters dead, even in the absence of conclusive evidence of their death. Despite the striking parallels, there are significant differences between the two cases, reflecting both the evolution of investigation methods and the uniqueness of each situation. 1. Speed of family decision. Sudiksha's parents decided to declare their daughter dead just 10 days after her disappearance, while in Natalee's case, this process took almost 7 years. 2. Technological progress. The investigation of Sudiksha's case took place in the era of smartphones, social media, and improved surveillance systems, which theoretically should have simplified evidence collection. 3. Nature of key witnesses. In Sudiksha's case, the key witness, Joshua Riibe, was an American student with no prior criminal history, while Joran van der Sloot later turned out to be a serial criminal. 4. Investigation outcome. In Natalee's case, despite the absence of her body, a confession from the killer was eventually obtained, while in Sudiksha's case, the final conclusion remains undetermined. 5. Authorities' reaction. The Dominican Republic, recognizing the importance of tourism for its economy and remembering the lessons of the Holloway case, showed greater activity and openness in the investigation than the Aruba authorities 20 years ago. Both tragic stories became a cruel reminder of the potential dangers young people can face when traveling abroad. Natalee Holloway's mother, Beth, who after her daughter's death dedicated her life to youth safety issues, responded to the news of Sudiksha's disappearance with a call for a full circle of safety for students traveling abroad. When I hear about cases like Sudiksha Konanki's, my heart breaks at the realization that 20 years after my daughter's disappearance, young people continue to face the same dangers, Beth Holloway said in an interview with Fox News. After Sudiksha's disappearance, the FBI issued a special warning for American students planning to spend spring break abroad. The warning emphasized the importance of caution when communicating with strangers, the need to travel in groups, and to avoid consuming alcohol with unfamiliar people. The Natalee Holloway case, despite its tragic outcome, finally received a certain closure when Joran van der Sloot confessed to the murder. This brought at least partial relief to her family, especially her mother Beth, who fought for truth and justice for over 18 years. The tragedy of Sudiksha Konanki, unfortunately, leaves more questions than answers. Did she really drown, as Joshua Riibe claims? Are there grounds to suspect a criminal nature of her disappearance? Will her body ever be found? These questions may remain unanswered forever, intensifying the pain of the Konanki family. Nevertheless, both stories are united by their impact on public consciousness and safety measures. The Natalee Holloway case led to significant changes in safety protocols for American students abroad and raised awareness about potential dangers. The Sudiksha Konanki case once again drew attention to these issues, reminding us that even 2 decades after the tragedy in Aruba, young people still remain vulnerable during travel. In the end, the most important legacy of both girls became a reminder of the value of life and the need for constant vigilance. Their stories made thousands of parents take their children's safety issues more seriously, and young people to think about the potential risks of their actions. Natalee and Sudiksha, separated by time and circumstances but united by a tragic fate, will forever remain symbols of innocence that was so early and unfairly lost in places that should have been paradise corners for relaxation, but instead became the last pages of their short but bright lives. Day of May 30, 2010, when a young 21-year-old Peruvian woman, Stephanie Flores Ramirez, decided to try her luck at a poker tournament at the Atlantic City Casino in Lima. The girl had every reason to be optimistic. Just a few days ago, she had won $10,000. Before leaving, she told her father she would return in a few days, not suspecting that this trip would become fatal for her. Stephanie came from a prominent and respected family. Her father, Ricardo Flores, was not only a successful race car driver but also ran for president of Peru. The large Flores family had 5 children, 4 sons and the youngest daughter Stephanie, who was especially protected and loved by all. Despite their high social status and wealth, the family remained humble and genuine in their interactions, leading a normal lifestyle. Stephanie's brothers were involved in organizing various events, while she herself combined her studies in her 3rd year at the Business Administration faculty of the University of Lima with work in the family business. Additionally, she had a special talent for gambling, which brought her considerable profit. When Stephanie didn't return home after the tournament, her absence caused serious concern for her father. Such behavior was completely uncharacteristic for the responsible young woman who had never disappeared before. Ricardo immediately sought help from his sons. Attempts to reach their sister proved futile, as did numerous calls to her friends and acquaintances. The brothers searched the entire area but to no avail. Without wasting time, the father contacted law enforcement. The police began their investigation by visiting the hotel where the poker tournament was held. The establishment staff couldn't shed light on the participants' disappearance, so detectives focused on examining surveillance camera footage. Review of the video materials from the corridor near the conference hall revealed that around 3 a.m. on May 30, Stephanie entered the premises and joined a young man in light-colored clothing. Their interaction during the tournament appeared casual, and around 5 a.m., they left the hall together. The hotel staff remembered this stranger, noting his politeness and friendliness. One employee even compared his appearance to Brad Pitt. This was what stood out most in their memory. Further examination of surveillance footage showed that at 5:16 a.m., the pair entered room 309. After some time, the young man left and returned with coffee and pastries for 2. Approximately 3 hours and 20 minutes after their first entry into the room, he left the premises with his backpack, telling the staff not to disturb the girl. When concerned detectives entered the room, they were met with a horrific scene. Stephanie Flores was found dead, brutally beaten. According to investigators, the murder weapon was a tennis racket recovered from the crime scene. The medical examination revealed numerous injuries: a broken neck, hemorrhage in the left part of the head, nasal damage, signs of strangulation, blunt trauma to the back of the head and lower neck. The immediate cause of death was brain hemorrhage from blunt force trauma. Stephanie's body was fully clothed, lying on her back, and showed no signs of sexual assault. However, all her money, about $15,000, $10,000 in winnings and $5,000 from her father for purchasing a laptop, cards, and valuables were stolen. The investigation quickly identified the suspect, 22-year-old Dutch citizen Joran van der Sloot, under whose name room 309 was registered. Further investigation revealed that he was internationally wanted and connected to another complex criminal case. While investigating Stephanie Flores's case, detectives discovered a chilling coincidence. Joran van der Sloot had already been a suspect in the disappearance of American Natalee Holloway. This event occurred on the island of Aruba exactly 5 years earlier, on May 30, 2005. This disturbing discovery prompted law enforcement to act as quickly as possible, fearing that the dangerous criminal might be involved in other crimes. While the search for the European fugitive continued, investigators delved into Natalee Holloway's case to better understand the suspect. Natalee's story began in Clinton, Mississippi, where she was born on October 21, 1986. The eldest child in the family, she experienced her parents' divorce at age 7, staying with her mother but maintaining warm relations with her father. The family's life changed when Natalee's mother remarried a successful businessman, and they moved to Mountain Brook, Alabama. Natalee was 14 at the time. Natalee was an exemplary student, passionate about cheerleading and dancing, graduating with honors. Her achievements earned her a full university scholarship, and the future seemed bright until a fateful trip derailed all plans. In May 2005, 18-year-old Natalee traveled with a school group for a dream vacation to the island of Aruba, part of the Dutch Caribbean, known for its safety and low crime rate. The trip was organized for graduates. A total of 124 students under the supervision of 11 teachers stayed at the Holiday Inn on an all-inclusive basis. On the island, where consumption is permitted from age 18, the vacation proceeded carefree. Each day followed a similar routine: flexible wake-up time, beach relaxation, swimming in the crystal-clear Caribbean waters, afternoon rest, dinner, and entertainment at the casino bar with cocktails. On May 29, 2005, the last day of vacation, everything followed the usual pattern. Natalee, like others, packed her belongings, placed her passport near her suitcase, and went to dinner. Dramatic events unfolded the next morning when the group gathered in the hotel lobby for departure to the airport. Natalee's absence was initially attributed to oversleeping, but calls to her room went unanswered. When teachers and staff opened her room, they found only packed belongings and her passport. Urgent searches throughout the hotel premises yielded no results. Around 11 a.m., a teacher contacted Natalee's mother to report the disappearance. The mother categorically rejected suggestions of her daughter's voluntary departure, expressing fears of kidnapping. The shocked group, knowing Natalee's responsible nature, understood something serious had happened. After notifying the police, most students and teachers returned home, while the girl's parents, mother with stepfather and biological father, urgently flew to Aruba. They immediately launched their own search, distributing photos of their daughter and actively cooperating with the investigation. The mother also reported the incident to 911 and the FBI. The investigation established that Natalee hadn't returned to her room on the last night. According to friends' testimonies, she was seen in the hotel casino, communicating with a tall young man of European appearance, presumably Dutch. Security guards confirmed that after the casino closed, the girl got into a Honda with 3 young men whom the establishment staff knew as regular visitors. The investigation identified the 3 young men from the Honda: 17-year-old Dutch national Joran van der Sloot and the Kalpo brothers, 21-year-old Deepak and 18-year-old Sudiksha. Surveillance cameras confirmed the security guard's testimony that Natalee spent time at the same table with Joran before leaving the establishment with this trio. Casino staff characterized Joran as an experienced manipulator who regularly visited the establishment seeking wealthy female tourists, trying to extort money from them. Despite his young age, just 18, and coming from a respectable family, his father was a lawyer preparing to become a judge, the young man already had a problematic reputation. A former honor student athlete who was predicted to have a brilliant football career, in his teens he became a regular at bars and casinos, abusing alcohol. The investigation focused on Joran. When police arrived with Natalee's parents at his house, where the familiar Honda was parked, the suspect's father reported that his son had gone to another hotel's casino. However, he wasn't found there. Later, Joran's father called the police, reporting his son's return with friend Deepak. During separate interrogations, the friends' versions not only differed but constantly changed. Initially, they denied any acquaintance with Natalee, but after being shown video recordings, Joran remembered the meeting. According to him, after the casino, the four of them went to a nightclub where they danced and drank, after which they allegedly drove the girl back to the hotel. Later, he added a detail about harassment by a hotel security guard, but the police, having camera footage, knew Natalee hadn't returned to the hotel. Throughout the investigation, the suspects were repeatedly detained for false testimony but were released each time due to lack of evidence. Their version of events changed again. Now they told of a trip to the lighthouse to watch the ocean and a walk on Ayrshire Beach. According to Joran, the Kalpoe brothers left, leaving them alone. He claimed that Natalee was heavily intoxicated, constantly passing out, and he left her alone on the beach since he had to wake up early for classes. According to his version, they only kissed, without contact. The Kalpoe brothers instead claimed that the Dutchman simply had fun with the girl and abandoned her on the beach. A thorough beach search yielded no results. A new version was proposed by a gardener from another hotel who claimed to have seen all three suspects digging a hole near a pond on the night of the disappearance. Police drained the pond and dug up the area but found nothing. Time passed, but the case didn't progress. The Holloway family, dissatisfied with the investigation's progress, accused the police of incompetence and insufficient pressure on Joran. They announced a reward, $100,000 for information about Natalee's whereabouts and $1 million for her return alive. This led to a flood of unverified reports, which, according to police, only hindered the investigation. Tension between Aruban authorities and the Holloway family grew. Law enforcement felt they were under excessive pressure to arrest suspects without sufficient evidence. Although Joran, Deepak, and Sudiksha spent 3 weeks in custody, Joran, an additional 2 months, they were never charged. The case took a new turn when the Kalpoe brothers accused Joran's father of helping his son conceal the body. Despite a 3-day detention, no evidence against him was found. Using his legal knowledge, Joran's father successfully sued the Aruban police for wrongful detention, receiving compensation of $40,000. The case of Natalee's disappearance gained widespread attention in American media, causing serious concern for Aruban authorities, whose economy largely depended on U.S. tourists. The girl's parents tirelessly fought for justice, trying to intensify the investigation. Joran van der Sloot, instead of keeping a low profile, began actively appearing on American television programs, giving paid interviews where he discussed his meeting with Natalee and the events of that night. He persistently maintained his innocence in the girl's disappearance. A year after the incident, Joran returned to the Netherlands to continue his studies. On local television programs, he presented himself as a victim of conspiracy, repeating his version about leaving Natalee in the hotel lobby and on the beach. 2 years after the girl's disappearance, he even co-authored a book with a journalist, detailing his version of events, turning the tragedy into a source of profit. Under pressure from the Holloway family, police conducted a thorough search of Joran's house and surrounding area in Aruba, digging up the entire yard, but to no avail. The investigation was closely followed in the USA, Aruba, and the Netherlands, and Joran himself became a controversial media figure. The public was divided between those who believed in his innocence and those who considered him guilty. During one television show, he even lost his temper and threw a glass at a journalist. 3 years later, a new witness emerged claiming to have seen Joran with his father near a fast food establishment at 4 a.m. on the night of the disappearance. According to him, the young man was running from the establishment, and then 2 men drove away in a red Jeep. Additional suspicions were raised by Joran's ex-girlfriend's statement about his chilling remark regarding his ability to dispose of a body. However, even these new testimonies didn't lead to charges. In 2008, the situation escalated after the emergence of a recording made by a hidden camera by a Dutch journalist. In it, Joran described Natalee's death, claiming she suddenly lost consciousness on the beach, after which his friends helped dispose of the body in the sea. In another recording, he gloated about the body never being found. Aruban police didn't consider these confessions sufficient evidence, viewing them as attempts to attract attention and make money. After this, Joran voluntarily underwent treatment in a psychiatric clinic, then moved to Bangkok, where he opened a restaurant with money earned from media activities. In Thailand, he gave another scandalous interview where he made shocking statements about human trafficking, which he later claimed were jokes. These statements attracted local police attention, forcing him to urgently leave the country and sell his business. Soon after these events, Joran's father died, causing him to have a nervous breakdown and another course of treatment in a psychiatric hospital. Finding himself in financial difficulties after leaving the hospital, he developed a new money-making scheme. In 2019, he anonymously contacted the Holloway family's lawyer, proposing a deal. The story began with a shocking proposal. The young man offered to reveal the location of Natalee Holloway's remains for $250,000. He demanded an advance payment of $25,000, which the missing girl's father agreed to provide. The investigation established that the author of these messages was a man named Joran. The meeting took place on Aruba, where Joran told Natalee's father a new version of events. According to him, he accidentally pushed the girl who was asking to be let go. When he did, she fell and hit her head on a rock, resulting in instant death. After this, according to Joran, he and his father buried the body in a house foundation. However, police investigation quickly exposed the lie. The indicated house had been built before Natalee's disappearance, making it impossible to conceal a body there. Shortly after the meeting, the father received an email from Joran confessing that he had fabricated the entire story. Natalee's parents didn't give up and cooperated with the FBI, gathering evidence against the Dutchman at least for fraud and extortion. When the case was finally opened, Joran fled to Peru, where his life unexpectedly intersected with Stephanie Flores's fate. The resolution came on June 3, 2010, when Joran's ex-girlfriend called the police. He had contacted her asking to borrow money for a ticket, but instead of helping, she informed law enforcement of his whereabouts. The fugitive was arrested in Chile, where he had arrived by 2 taxis from Peru, attempting to purchase an airline ticket. Police immediately noticed blood on his clothes. He was in such a hurry that he hadn't even changed. After extradition to Peru, Joran was charged with Stephanie Flores's murder. Initially, he maintained his innocence, telling a story about armed robbers who allegedly broke into the hotel room, stole valuables, and shot the girl. According to his version, the blood on his clothes appeared as a result of the shooting. However, evidence disproved this story. Surveillance cameras didn't record any robbers, no one heard gunshots, and most importantly, the girl had no gunshot wounds. For days after his arrest, Joran confessed to the murder. According to him, the tragedy occurred after Stephanie found information about the Natalee Holloway case on his laptop. When he tried to explain to her that he wasn't involved in Natalee's disappearance, the frightened girl hit him and tried to escape. This triggered his rage. He struck her with his elbow in the nose and began strangling her. Seeing blood on his shirt, he took it off and used it to cover the victim's face. Joran stopped the attack only when Stephanie showed no signs of life. He explained his actions as influenced by alcohol and fear that the girl would go to the police. According to him, it was an impulsive act caused by loss of self-control. However, investigators leaned toward a simpler motive: robbery to obtain money and valuables. Realizing he faced lengthy imprisonment in Peru, Joran tried to negotiate with investigators. He offered to reveal the location of Natalee Holloway's remains in exchange for dropping all charges, but this offer was rejected. The trial proceeded quickly as the evidence was irrefutable. Cameras recorded him entering the room with Stephanie and leaving alone. Her blood was found on his wrists, and his DNA was found on the victim's body and the murder weapon. On his lawyer's advice, who promised a maximum of 15 years imprisonment, Joran pleaded guilty. However, the court sentenced him to 28 years in prison and ordered him to pay the Flores family compensation of $75,000. The convict was dissatisfied with the sentence and blamed everything on his lawyer and the police, claiming he was forced to confess. It was also decided that after serving his sentence in Peru, Joran would be extradited to the U.S. to face charges of fraud and extortion regarding the Holloway family. In 2014, while in prison, Joran met a 33-year-old Peruvian accountant Lady Figueroa, who sold sweets and cigarettes to inmates. They developed a romance that led to marriage. The couple later had a daughter whom they named Trudy van der Sloot after Joran's grandmother. Thanks to the liberal rules of the penitentiary, his wife was able to visit Joran twice a week. In her accounts, she portrayed him as an extremely kind person. However, their relationship ended unexpectedly. In 2020, Joran decided to divorce her for a younger woman, 24-year-old Eva, with whom, as it later turned out, he was involved in smuggling contraband into prison. This led to additional punishment, 7 years of imprisonment and transfer to a stricter facility where visits were prohibited. Since then, he maintained contact with the outside world through correspondence with Eva and other women. For many years, Joran faced no official charges in Natalee Holloway's disappearance, which remained unsolved. However, the deceased's family was convinced of his involvement. According to witnesses, Joran and the Calpo brothers were known for their scheme of targeting wealthy American tourists. Joran, thanks to his fluent English and attractive appearance, acted as the main operative, while the brothers played supporting roles. Natalee's relatives suspected she fell victim to such a fraud scheme. Perhaps the initial plan didn't involve murder, they just wanted to swindle money. But something went wrong, possibly, the girl refused to give up her money, leading to a fatal argument. According to one theory, the criminals disposed of the body by throwing it into the ocean where sharks live. The theory of premeditated murder wasn't ruled out either, especially after learning about the murder of Stephanie Flores, who, like Natalee, met Joran in a casino. Initially, Peruvian authorities planned to extradite Joran to the U.S. only after he served his sentence for Stephanie Flores's murder. However, in May 2023, the decision changed. They agreed to temporarily transfer him to American authorities, considering the advanced age of prosecution witnesses. Authorities hoped this would bring peace to the Holloway family. Despite Joran's attempts through his lawyer to cancel the extradition, at the end of May 2023, he was urgently removed from the Peruvian prison. In early June, FBI agents delivered him to the U.S. by special aircraft. On June 8, 2023, Joran was brought to prison in Birmingham, near Natalee Holloway's hometown. Then on October 12, 2023, he pleaded guilty to fraud and extortion against Beth Holloway, Natalee's mother. As part of a plea agreement, he finally revealed the truth about Natalee's fate, confessing that he hit her with a brick on the beach after she rejected his advances, then disposed of her body in the ocean. During the court hearing, he publicly apologized to the Holloway family. On October 18, 2023, a federal judge in Birmingham sentenced him to 20 years in prison for extortion and fraud. He will serve this term after completing his 28-year imprisonment in Peru for Stephanie Flores's murder. The Calpo brothers, Deepak and Sudiksha, although accomplices on the night of Natalee's disappearance, went unpunished due to lack of evidence. After Joran's confession, the judge officially declared Natalee Holloway deceased. Although her body was never found, this confession put an end to the almost 20-year case of her disappearance. Currently, Joran is serving his sentence in Calapalca prison in Peru, after which he will be transferred to a federal prison in the U.S. to serve an additional 20-year term. Taking into account all sentences, he will remain behind bars at least until 2045. The spring break of 2025 was supposed to be a time of relaxation and fun for Sudiksha Konanki, a 20-year-old student at the University of Pittsburgh. The young woman of Indian descent traveled with friends to a tourist paradise, Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. No one could have predicted that this trip would turn into an international search operation that would attract the attention of global media and become one of the most mysterious disappearance cases of 2025. On March 6, 2025, Sudiksha Konanki suddenly disappeared on a beach in Punta Cana. Her mysterious disappearance quickly turned into a case that united the efforts of law enforcement agencies from two countries, attracted the attention of the international community, and gave rise to countless unanswered questions. Sudiksha Konanki was born into a family of Indian descent and grew up in Northern Virginia. Her parents emigrated to the United States from India in search of a better future for their family, bringing with them the rich cultural traditions and values of their homeland. They settled in the suburbs of Washington, where they raised their daughter in an atmosphere of respect for education and hard work. From early childhood, Sudiksha showed remarkable learning abilities. Teachers noted her inquisitive mind, diligence, and thirst for knowledge. In school, she not only demonstrated excellent academic results but also actively participated in various extracurricular activities. The girl was particularly fascinated by natural sciences, which later influenced her choice of future profession. The Konanki family maintained strong ties with the Indian community in Northern Virginia, and Sudiksha grew up with a deep understanding and respect for her cultural roots. She studied Hindi and participated in traditional cultural events and festivals. This biculturalism, American upbringing with Indian heritage, shaped her worldview and values, making her open to different perspectives and cultural traditions. Friends and acquaintances described Sudiksha as a vibrant personality with a warm smile and friendly character. She easily found common ground with people, was a reliable friend, and always ready to help. These qualities made her popular among peers and a favorite of teachers. After graduating from high school with honors, Sudiksha Konanki enrolled in the prestigious University of Pittsburgh, where she studied neuroscience and biology. Her choice was not random. The girl dreamed of becoming a doctor and helping people. At 20, she was already in her second year of university and demonstrating outstanding academic achievements, combining studies with scientific work in the university laboratory. At the university, Sudiksha quickly integrated into student life. She joined several student organizations, including the Indian Students Association and the Volunteer Club, where she regularly participated in charity events. In her spare time, she practiced yoga, enjoyed reading, and traveling. University friends remember her as a responsible, purposeful student with big plans for the future. Despite her busy study schedule, Sudiksha maintained close relationships with her family. She regularly called her parents, telling them about her successes and plans. According to her parents, in the months before her disappearance, she was full of enthusiasm about her research and was looking forward to a summer internship at a medical institution. The spring break of 2025 was meant to be a short break for Sudiksha before her final exams. She planned to spend this time with friends, relaxing on the beaches of Punta Cana. Nothing foretold trouble. The girl was in good spirits, full of plans and expectations for the future. She even scheduled several meetings for the period after returning from vacation, indicating that she had no intention of disappearing or not returning to her normal life. Spring break at American universities is a traditional time of rest for students, and Sudiksha Konanki with 5 friends decided to spend this period in Punta Cana, a popular tourist destination in the Dominican Republic. The girls booked rooms in advance at the Riu Bamboo Hotel in the Arena Gorda Resort area, known for its picturesque beaches and vibrant nightlife. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will bring you more videos featuring the most shocking true crime stories. Preparation for the trip was thorough. According to university friends, Sudiksha enthusiastically planned the vacation, compiling a list of activities and excursions. She informed her parents about the upcoming trip and promised to stay in regular contact. The Konanki family did not express concern about the trip. Sudiksha was a responsible girl, and the Dominican Republic was generally considered a safe destination for tourists. The group arrived in Punta Cana on March 3, 2025. The first days of vacation passed carefree. The girls relaxed on the beach, participated in water activities, and visited local attractions. In the photos that Sudiksha sent to her parents, she looked happy and relaxed. Nothing foreshadowed the approaching tragedy. Interestingly, during the vacation, Sudiksha met several other American tourists, including a group of young people from Iowa. These chance encounters would later become important elements in the investigation of her disappearance. Analyzing the last days before Sudiksha Konanki's disappearance, investigators compiled a detailed chronology of events that helps understand the circumstances of the case. Here's how events unfolded on the eve of the fateful March 6. On March 4, 2025, Sudiksha and her friends spent the day at the Riu Bamboo Hotel beach. In the evening, they visited one of Punta Cana's popular nightclubs, Coco Bongo, where they met a group of American tourists from Iowa, including 25-year-old Joshua Riibe. According to friends, Sudiksha interacted with the new acquaintances, but the evening ended without incidents, and the girls returned to their hotel. On March 5, the group met Joshua Riibe and his friends again on the beach. They spent time together, talked, and participated in water activities. According to Sudiksha's friends, she seemed pleased with the new acquaintance and willingly communicated with Riibe. In the evening, the company dined together at one of the beach restaurants. Later that same evening, a strange event occurred. Sudiksha made two payments through the Venmo payment system, one for $175 and another for $55. The recipient of both payments was Joshua Riibe. The purpose of these transfers remains unclear and constitutes one of the mysteries in the case. According to one version, it could have been payment for narcotic substances, according to another, a contribution for shared entertainment. Also, on the evening of March 5, Sudiksha called her parents and informed them that everything was fine, she was enjoying her vacation and planned to go on an excursion the next day. This was the girl's last conversation with her family. In her last message to a friend, she wrote that she was going to bed early since she planned an early morning departure for an excursion the next day. March 6, 2025, became the fateful day in this story. According to information from Sudiksha's friends, they woke up around 8 a.m. and found Sudiksha's bed empty. At first, they didn't give it much thought, assuming the girl might have gone for a morning run or breakfast. However, when she didn't return by noon and wasn't responding to calls and messages, her friends began to worry. That same morning, around 2:30 a.m., hotel surveillance cameras recorded Sudiksha leaving the hotel grounds in a swimsuit with a light dress over it. She was heading towards the beach. Interestingly, in the video, she was walking alone, without any accompaniment, and appeared calm. Later, around 4:17 a.m., another surveillance camera from a neighboring hotel captured Sudiksha walking on the beach in the company of a man who was later identified as Joshua Riibe. In the video, they looked relaxed and showed no signs of conflict or tension. This is the last known visual evidence that Sudiksha was alive and well. From this moment began the most controversial part of the story. According to Joshua Riibe, he and Sudiksha were swimming in the ocean when suddenly a large wave covered them. He claims that he helped the girl get to shore, after which she went in the direction of the hotels, and he remained on the beach. However, no witnesses were found to confirm this version. When Sudiksha's friends realized she was missing, they informed the hotel staff and local police. By the end of the day, a search operation was launched, covering beaches and surrounding areas. Divers, drones, and search dogs were deployed. However, no trace of the girl was found. That same evening, Sudiksha Konanki's parents were informed about their daughter's disappearance. Shocked by the terrible news, they immediately flew to the Dominican Republic to personally participate in the search. From this moment began the family's long and difficult struggle to find the truth about their daughter's fate. Joshua Riibe, a 25-year-old resident of Iowa, became a central figure in the investigation of Sudiksha Konanki's disappearance. According to him, he came to Punta Cana on vacation with a group of friends and met Sudiksha and her friends at the Coco Bongo nightclub on March 11. Riibe worked in the insurance industry in Iowa and, according to his friends, was sociable and friendly. The version of events that Riibe initially told investigators was as follows: on the morning of March 6, he accidentally met Sudiksha on the beach. They decided to swim in the ocean when they were unexpectedly covered by a large wave. According to him, he helped the girl get to shore, after which she seemed to be okay and walked in the direction of the hotel. He claimed that this was the last time he saw Sudiksha. However, significant discrepancies later emerged in his testimony. In an interview with NBC News, Riibe stated that he and Sudiksha had been consuming alcoholic beverages that morning, particularly tequila, which contradicted his previous statements about an accidental morning encounter. Additionally, he told journalists that Sudiksha drowned, and he pulled her out of the water, which sounded more dramatic than his initial version for the police. Another suspicious detail, the payments that Sudiksha made to Riibe through Venmo the day before her disappearance. The sum of $230 seemed strange for a casual acquaintance, and Riibe could not convincingly explain the purpose of this money. Initially, he claimed it was payment for a joint trip to a restaurant, then changed his version, saying it was money for help in purchasing souvenirs. On March 7, Riibe unexpectedly flew to the United States, which raised additional suspicions among investigators. According to CNN, he left the Dominican Republic earlier than planned, without informing the authorities and without providing full testimony to the Dominican police. The Dominican authorities recognized Riibe as a person of interest in the investigation and turned to American colleagues for help in interrogating him. The Dominican National Police launched a large-scale search operation immediately after being notified of the girl's disappearance. Divers were deployed to examine coastal waters, drones were used for aerial reconnaissance, and search teams combed the beaches and surrounding areas. The American FBI joined the investigation at the request of the Konanki family and because of Sudiksha's status as a U.S. citizen. FBI agents arrived in the Dominican Republic on March 8 to coordinate efforts with local police and conduct their own investigation. The FBI actively participated in the investigation, creating a special team to analyze digital evidence, including surveillance camera footage and data from Sudiksha's phone. FBI agents also interviewed Sudiksha's friends and acquaintances in the United States, trying to find any clues that might explain her disappearance. The University of Pittsburgh also actively joined the search for their student. The university administration issued an official statement expressing deep concern about the situation and assuring their full support for the Konanki family. The university created a special support group for Sudiksha's friends and classmates, and also organized fundraising to help with the search efforts. The Indian consulate in the U.S. and the embassy in the Dominican Republic also intervened in the case, considering the Indian origin of the Konanki family. Diplomats worked to ensure proper investigation and support for the family. During the investigation, dozens of witnesses were questioned, including hotel staff, tourists who were vacationing nearby, and Sudiksha's friends. Special attention was paid to the group of tourists from Iowa with whom Sudiksha had contact in the last days. Surveillance camera footage, phone calls, and bank transactions were analyzed. One of the key pieces of evidence in the case was surveillance camera footage showing Sudiksha in the last hours before her disappearance. Particularly important is the recording that captured her around 4:17 a.m. on March 6, when she was walking on the beach with Joshua Riibe. The video shows that she was wearing a swimsuit and a light dress, looked calm, and showed no signs of stress. Another important piece of evidence was the payments made by Sudiksha through the Venmo system to Joshua Riibe on the eve of her disappearance. The purpose of these payments remains unclear, but their existence indicates some financial relationship between Sudiksha and Riibe. Sudiksha's phone also became an important source of information. Analysis of geolocation data showed that on the morning of March 6, the device moved from the hotel toward the beach, confirming the version of her leaving the hotel on her own. However, the phone signal was interrupted around 4:30 a.m., which may indicate the time when the device was damaged by water or turned off. Interestingly, during the investigation, a witness emerged who claimed to have seen Sudiksha getting into a taxi near one of the hotels at approximately 9 a.m. on March 6. However, checking surveillance camera footage in this area did not confirm this information, and investigators consider this testimony unreliable. An important element of the investigation was also Joshua Riibe's contradictory testimony. According to Fox News, he repeatedly changed details of his account about the morning of March 6. Initially, he claimed that he accidentally met Sudiksha on the beach, then said they had arranged to meet the day before. He also described the girl's condition after the wave incident differently, from completely normal to slightly disoriented. The absence of Sudiksha's body, despite intensive searches, remains one of the main mysteries of the case. This has given rise to various theories, from an accident in the water with the body being carried away by the current to versions about kidnapping or voluntary disappearance. The family of Sudiksha Konanki demonstrated extraordinary resilience and determination in the search for their missing daughter. The girl's parents, Prabhakar and Geeta Konanki, arrived in Punta Cana on March 7, the day after her disappearance. They immediately joined the search efforts and began their own investigation, not relying solely on official authorities. In their first public statement made on March 8, 2025, Sudiksha's parents expressed deep concern about the situation and asked anyone with any information about their daughter to immediately contact the police. "Our daughter is a bright, intelligent girl with a great future. We just want to know what happened to her and bring her home," said Prabhakar Konanki during a press conference. The Konanki family hired private detectives to conduct a parallel investigation. According to People magazine, they also offered a reward of $50,000 for information that would help find Sudiksha. The girl's parents gave dozens of interviews to local and international media, trying to bring maximum attention to the case. Prabhakar Konanki was particularly critical of the initial efforts of the Dominican police. In an interview with the Washington Post, he stated that he felt the search was not initially taken seriously enough and precious time was lost. "The first 48 hours are critically important in disappearance cases, and we felt that these hours were wasted on bureaucratic procedures," he said. The Konanki family was especially adamant after the emergence of Joshua Riibe's contradictory testimony. "We are confident that this man knows more than he is telling. His story keeps changing, and we demand that he tell the truth about what happened to our daughter," Geeta Konanki said in an interview with ABC News. The Indian community in the United States actively joined in supporting the Konanki family. Several charity events were organized to raise funds for the search, as well as prayer gatherings in various states. The Indian Embassy in the Dominican Republic and the Consulate in the United States also provided support to the family and facilitated coordination with local authorities. The University of Pittsburgh community also did not remain indifferent. Students organized several events in support of the search for Sudiksha and created an online petition demanding a more thorough investigation, which gathered over 200,000 signatures. The University of Pittsburgh established a special scholarship in the name of Sudiksha Konanki for students studying neuroscience. The case of Sudiksha Konanki received wide media coverage, which helped to draw public attention. The hashtag #FindSudiksha went viral on social media, and the story of the girl's disappearance was broadcast by leading TV channels in the United States, India, and the Dominican Republic. As of March 8, 2025, 2 days after Sudiksha Konanki's disappearance, the investigation continues with increased intensity. Despite extensive searches, which include the use of drones, divers, and search dogs, no direct traces of the girl have been found. The main efforts of investigators are focused on interrogating Joshua Riibe, who remains the main person of interest in the case. According to the New York Post, on March 8, Riibe was detained by American police in Iowa for questioning. The Konanki family stated that the detention occurred under unusual circumstances, and that investigators intensified the interrogations. Discrepancies in Riibe's testimony remain a key aspect of the investigation. According to CBS News, investigators found at least 5 different versions of events on the morning of March 13 in his accounts. Particular attention is drawn to the fact that he left the Dominican Republic earlier than planned and did not provide comprehensive explanations regarding the payments received from Sudiksha. Dominican authorities have expanded the search area, including territories outside the beach zone. According to CNN, additional resources have been involved in the search, including specialized search teams from the United States. Police are also considering the possibility of kidnapping, although there is no concrete evidence of this so far. The Indian Embassy in the Dominican Republic issued an official statement expressing deep concern about the situation and assuring that it is making every possible effort to assist in the search for the citizen of Indian origin. Diplomats are working to ensure proper coordination between American and Dominican law enforcement agencies. According to recent data from NBC News, investigators have paid special attention to the mysterious Venmo payments that Sudiksha made to Riibe. Information has emerged that such payments could be related to the purchase of narcotic substances, although this version is not officially confirmed. The case of Sudiksha Konanki has sparked a broader discussion about the safety of American students during spring break abroad. Several U.S. universities have already announced increased security measures and additional briefings for students planning to travel. Following the disappearance of Sudiksha Konanki, the investigation gained a significant connection to another high-profile missing person case when Beth Holloway, mother of Natalee Holloway who vanished in Aruba in 2005, became involved. Beth Holloway reached out to the Konanki family to offer her support and expertise, having navigated a similar tragedy nearly 2 decades earlier. In media interviews, Beth identified a key difference between the cases. While Sudiksha's last moments were captured on surveillance footage with Joshua Riibe, her daughter Natalee's final hours with Joran van der Sloot were not documented on camera. Beth emphasized the importance of this visual evidence in the Konanki investigation, noting that having that footage is crucial, as it provides investigators with critical information that was missing in her daughter's case. The Konanki family also reportedly enlisted the help of T.J. Ward, the private investigator who worked on the Natalee Holloway case for years. Ward's involvement brought additional expertise and resources to the search efforts, applying lessons learned from the Holloway investigation to Sudiksha's case. This connection between the two cases highlighted the unfortunate similarities in tragedies involving young women traveling abroad. You can also watch the Natalee Holloway case on our YouTube channel. Just wait until the end of this video and you will be offered to view that case. Despite the lack of concrete search results, the Konanki family has not lost hope of finding Sudiksha alive. We will continue to search for our daughter, no matter how long it takes. We will not rest until we know the truth, Prabhakar Konanki said in a recent interview with CNN. The case of Sudiksha Konanki remains open, with many unresolved questions and mysteries. The investigation continues, and each new detail could be crucial in revealing the truth about what happened to the young student on the beaches of Punta Cana on that fateful morning of March 6, 2025. As of March 19, 2025, the parents of Sudiksha Konanki have made a heartbreaking statement accepting that their daughter most likely drowned during her spring break trip to Punta Cana. After extensive investigation and searching efforts, Prabhakar and Geeta Konanki released a statement saying, "With deep sadness and a heavy heart, we have come to accept that our beloved daughter Sudiksha has tragically drowned while on her spring break vacation." This represents a significant shift from their earlier position, as they had previously expressed skepticism about the drowning theory and pushed for a more thorough investigation. In a related development, Joshua Riibe, the last person believed to have seen Sudiksha alive, appeared before a judge in the Dominican Republic on March 19. According to reports, the judge has authorized his release and return to the United States today. Dominican authorities have not charged Riibe with any crime related to Konanki's disappearance, though he remains a person of interest in the ongoing investigation. The judge's decision came after reviewing all available evidence, including surveillance footage and witness testimonies that corroborated parts of Riibe's account about the incident involving a large wave. Despite extensive search operations involving both Dominican and American authorities, Sudiksha's body has not been recovered. Oceanographers consulted by the investigation team have suggested that strong currents in the area could have carried her remains far from the shore, making recovery extremely difficult. The search operation continues, though at a reduced scale, as authorities now focus on coastal areas where bodies are typically recovered following drowning incidents in this region. More than 2,000 American citizens disappear during foreign travel each year. The story of Sudiksha Konanki emphasizes the importance of caution and care while vacationing in other countries. It reminds us of the need to be vigilant even in popular tourist locations, especially when it comes to communicating with unfamiliar people. For parents and families of students studying abroad or traveling, the case of Sudiksha Konanki has become a painful reminder of the importance of maintaining regular communication with their children and having information about their whereabouts and plans. Many parents have begun to encourage their children to use location tracking apps and regularly stay in touch during trips. For law enforcement agencies and the tourism industry, this case has signaled the need to strengthen security measures and develop more effective protocols for responding to cases of missing foreign citizens. Several tourism companies have already announced the implementation of additional security measures for tourists, especially for young women traveling independently or in small groups. The case of Sudiksha Konanki remains open, and the search for truth continues. Perhaps in the future, new evidence or testimony will emerge that will help solve the mystery of her disappearance. But already, this story is forever inscribed in the chronicle of mysterious cases that have captured the world's attention and changed our understanding of safety and responsibility while traveling.
If you enjoy deep dives into true crime, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, friends!